In this episode, we're diving into Led Zeppelin III, the album that proved Zeppelin could do more than just melt faces with electric riffs. From thunderous rock to pastoral acoustic beauty, it's a record that redefined what heavy music could be. Let's drop the needle and explore the sound of a band fearless enough to change course at full speed. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. We did it!
We did.
Let's go home.
You did it.
We did it with your support.
Good night, everybody.
It took about an hour to record the intro, so no one feels like doing an episode now. Thanks for everybody tuning in. That was Led Zeppelin III.
Yeah, because we were talking on the, we're texting each other while you were doing the intro. The rest of us were like, "Oh, this album's blah, blah, blah." So we
talking amongst themselves,
and that's the way it had to be.
You guys chat while I get this whole speaking thing figured out.
Yeah.
Only been doing it for how many some odd years. Anyway, thank you for joining us. If you're new, every episode is pretty much like this. You can expect the same level of quality. If you're a returner, you already know what it's like. So settle in, grab a chair, grab something to drink, either hot or cold. Depending on your mood, I've got a cold drink. Eric, what do you have?
I got tea.
You got tea. Hot tea?
Hot tea. Yes.
Rob D, what do you have? Hot
cocoa.
Hot cocoa. Chris?
Coffee.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
I'm the only one with an iced beverage. I have a non-alcoholic athletic pumpkin.
Ooh, good one.
Mm.
Dark and gourdy, it's called. Like a gourd. Like, get it? Like a pumpkin is a gourd. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we are talking about Led Zeppelin III. It's our Zeppelin-versary. This is what I'm calling it from now on, Eric. Every November, we do a Zeppelin episode. It was last November when these two gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Clark, welcome, and Mr. Rob DiStefano, welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening.
We're here for Houses of the Holy.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Right. And also, if you remember, there was a lot of puns going on with Led Zeppelin titles in the conversation. So I expect the same level.
This one might be a little bit more difficult given some of the titles. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's less of a Zeppelin-versary than a celebration day.
Okay. And that's the way it has to be.
Yeah.
Eric, maybe it's a celebration day. I'll be the icebreaker.
Break it. There you go.
Break the ice.
I don't think you can get any better than that. So.
Well, if we go out on the tiles and think about it for a little while, we might be able to come up with something better. But here we go. We're going to talk the stats. If you're new, we give statistical, factual information before all the speculation and opinion. So it's a good mix of both. But this way, you've got some statistical information to cement the listening experience. So this album was released in October of 1970, produced by Jimmy Page. There was one single released. It was the Immigrant Song, no surprise. Hit number 16. Oddly enough, I didn't know that Zeppelin songs did that well on the charts. Hit number 1 on Billboard. No surprise there. Anticipation was very high for this album. And it went 6 times platinum. And we know that that's in excess of 6 million copies out the door. And let me go with a confession. Straight on, this is probably outside of Presence, probably the album I least listened to as far as Zeppelin goes. I remember listening to it and like, okay, Immigrant Song, and then everything after just kind of didn't do a whole lot for me at the time. Especially coming off of something as accessible as Led Zeppelin II and maybe some of the other stuff. But now, one thing, Eric, I love about what we do is that either I revisit something that we love, listen to something we've never listened to before, or get into something that one of us may have had an opinion about, or for some reason never got into as much as we should have. And I'm glad to say that I'm very happy that I got into this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I was a big fan of it myself back in the day. But Well, there's one thing that I'm probably going to probably be my end notes on, so I'm going to save it till later.
Okay.
But
All right.
but there
He's
was
already
one
teasing.
realization that I came across listening to this record. But
Okay.
I mean this. I absolutely adore this record now. I mean, some of the greatest acoustic stuff, and even the riffs on this record, and even though they're done acoustically, are just amazing. And I like it because it's an album. It's not. Yeah, this album doesn't have a lot of hits on it, but that's why I love it.
That's probably why I didn't immediately connect with it. As a casual Zeppelin listener, you kind of go for the albums with the stuff that you know is on it, which makes it easier to kind of get in and you know Zeppelin can be there's some Zeppelin that can be challenging. So I'm glad that that we took the opportunity to do this album as well, because I kind of came away with the same thing. Now, Mr. Rob D, you didn't have any of those issues now, did you?
Not a one. No. Zeppelin III does fall through the cracks a little bit. I think because it's in that same era with Zeppelin II and Zeppelin IV, and those are two monster albums that sort of, I think, overshadow it a little bit. But it definitely has its followers, though. I think it's definitely a musician's album. I always see interviews with a lot of famous musicians that always point to, like in fact, Eddie Van Halen. I saw an interview where he said Zeppelin III was his favorite album by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it has the palette of that album is it's very enticing for a musician. I think there's a lot to chew on there.
Sure, and I think, and which we'll dive into a little deeper before I kick it over to Chris, is there's that there's absolutely a shift or something changing in Led Zeppelin by Led Zeppelin III. Which we'll get into a little bit more. So, Chris, where does this one land? Why were you so excited about?
So I came into Led Zeppelin as a little kid. I think I was in 5th grade the first time my cousin played me a copy of 4, and then Led Zeppelin 2 and 4 were it for me throughout most of my life until I got into college, and then all the radio station nerds were really into Led Zeppelin, and the one that really kind of hit me to this. The thing that really hit me to this record in particular was the way Cameron Crowe used a couple of songs from the album in the movie Almost Famous.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 of my favorite scenes from that movie, like just like the sun rising while they're riding on the bus while That's the Way is playing, and then just the way Russell says that he loved everything about music, and Tangerine kicks in, like it's just and that's kind of what made me go a little bit further down the wormhole with this one, especially since for most of my life my father would go, Zeppelin 3 is the best one. I don't know why anybody says anything different. Zeppelin 3 is the best album. And anytime Led Zeppelin comes up, the next word's out of, if my dad's in the room, the next word's out of his mouth are 3 is my favorite record. And so I guess I finally listened when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I've been a huge fan of this record ever since. And when people ask me what my go-to Zeppelin records are, this is usually one of the 2 or 3 that I'll say, because it's easily one of my favorite Zeppelin albums and probably one of my favorite albums, period. And by doing, to Dean's point, doing this thing, I hadn't listened to it in a minute. And I've been doing a lot more driving lately between work and like picking up my kids, which like is like 20 minutes to a half hour away from where I work every day. And this is like a great driving album. It's just a really good album to have on in the car when you're driving. It's a good album to cruise to. So I really enjoy it, and I like the light and the shade of it. I like that it's not just like the bombastic rock and roll on Led Zeppelin 2, and there's that light and shade, and like I love how side 2 is. There's some really like bangers, but they got that acoustic groove to them, which are really cool because you don't get that on some of their other albums quite as prominently. So I just love this one so much.
Yeah, and like I said in the beginning, anticipation was very high for this album, especially coming off the first 2 Led Zeppelin albums. But then at the time, this is an album that has aged gracefully and in retrospect is held in a much higher regard than it was when it first came out, because of the standards that were set with Zeppelin 1 and Zeppelin 2, and people were expecting, okay, this is kind of the blueprint. This is what Zeppelin is going to be, and this is decidedly, it's not a hinge record that we like to talk about where things change. I think it's more of, and anybody could correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's all the four members of Led Zeppelin now feeling like Led Zeppelin, and what is it going to be, and not just the new Yardbirds project that Jimmy Page had to execute to, because he owned he was the last member in the Yardbirds, and he owned the name, and he wanted to keep a band going. And he got people, and I for me, it looks like Zeppelin III kind of represents all the members starting to come into their own, as opposed to kind of being led by Jimmy Page in the beginning of the driving force. Not that he's not the driving force of Zeppelin, but Plant really starts to assert his songwriting a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. And John Paul Jones is now playing more instruments and adding layers to what the sound is, and not being afraid to explore folk inspired stuff. Chris,
just in some of the reading I was doing this week about the record, two things that really kind of came up is that, like, this was they started working on this after like the whirlwind of 1969, where you had Led Zeppelin 1 and 2 come out, and the insane amount of touring. Like, they had toured at I think it was Christmas of 68 and the 69. They toured at Christmas time, and just, it was nonstop. And then I think finally when they were able to like take a breather, and they went to the that cottage, Bronny Yor, Page and Plant, and kind of were like able to relax and breathe. I think that's where they kind of found that, like, I think some of that serenity that comes through on some of the songs comes from that. And then I also read to your point that this is the first record where you definitely see all four members kind of assert themselves and contribute to the process. And it isn't driven as much by Page as the first two records were. I think the only song that Plant doesn't write the lyrics for is Tangerine, if I'm not mistaken. So they all are contributing much more than they had in the previous two records. Like, Page wasn't the sole songwriting force as much as he was on Zepp 1 and Zepp 2.
Yeah. Yeah, Eric, I think that speaks to it, where I think when we talked about Led Zeppelin II, you and I, oh yeah, they were writing that on the road because they were kind of a new band starting out, and they were touring and doing things, and now they can actually take a break and breathe. And I think that allows them to kind of settle and think about what they want to do, instead of we got to write songs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the extensive touring that they had been doing too. So when you say breathe, it was well deserved. So I mean, but Plant, I especially dig on this record. I think it's foreshadowing what he would be doing in later years with some of these sort of offbeat bands that he's throwing together, like Band of Joy and this folky take on Zeppelin classics and things like that. So I really, so that kind of connected with me too. Just sort of, going back and listening to it, and then comparing it to that kind of thing. And I think, that's where Plant, I think, really lives. I think he's really into the nature and the sort of, folklore, like, he's the Tolkien guy. He's the, whatever. I mean, but I really think he, this is something that he truly, this is, that something that's inside him, spiritually, that I think comes across, especially on this record.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Rob, how does this one hit you in the, if you're going in order in the discography? Does that track with what I'm saying, where they kind of had a chance to kind of calm things down, but then also kind of everybody figure out what their role is going to be in the group, as opposed to they literally knocked out 2 albums in the same year, right? Zeppelin first album was like in January, and then Zeppelin 2 was like in October or November or something like that.
And they put those albums that they spent like a couple of weeks on those albums too, putting those together. So yeah, I mean, like going to Bronny Orr, this was the first time where they could really like sit down and really concentrate on their songwriting. And I think that's why you get a lot of acoustic in there, because they do have a lot of folk influences on them. You saw a little of that in Zeppelin 1 with Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and stuff like that. But here they could really delve into that and really, hit it on straight ahead there. it's like, I think Chris, you mentioned it before. There's a lot of colors in this album too. It's very it has a good mix to it. You have hard rocking songs and you have the folk songs, but the folk songs are sort of rocky too. You
Yeah, they're
know,
great.
Yeah.
and so it's not like they're not like typical folk type songs. They have a heaviness to them also, which is nice.
Yeah, and what the first thing that I really thought of when I started listening to this, because essentially it was a new listen for me, is contrasted with what came before is the word arrangements. Right? These songs now have arrangements. They have levels. They have mandolins. There's strings on Friends. Right? There's now all of a sudden there's kind of a depth where Led Zeppelin was kind of clearly, for the most part, clearly defined as a 4-piece band, and that's the way the song sounded like. Anything on Zeppelin II sounds like just 4 people could play that. Mm-hmm. And now when you get to Zeppelin III, there's there's things going on in the background, and there's different, there's synthesizers and bass pedals and lots of different sounds that are kind of filling out what Zeppelin could be, and really while still retaining it. Yeah, it's not as riff heavy overtly as what came before. So I can understand when this came out, people were like, yeah, what, like, huh?
I love a quote
after the Immigrant Song. Like the Immigrant Song is probably like, oh yeah, okay. It's like, yeah. And then you get a song like Friends right after, and they're probably like, it's like Indian sounding. It's got these weird strings on it. Like what's happening to them?
I love a quote that John Paul Jones had about this album, where he said, after Led Zeppelin III, people stopped comparing us to bands like Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. I mean, they were more than what the first 2 albums were, right? I think, like I said, not to beat it to death, but the first 2 albums are kind of guided by Jimmy Page. It was kind of like his band and kind of here. But then, it's very interesting also, Eric, is for Page to kind of give up that stuff. I think when we did Led Zeppelin 2, I think there was something we talked about. Page was wanting or waiting for like Plant to like start or for someone else to start to embrace songwriting, to start to kind of take over some of the job of that. And now you're getting Led Zeppelin 3. You're kind of getting that.
Yeah, I agree. And I look at John Paul Jones on this record. He adds so much to it. And it's one of the first records where you hear a lot of keyboards too, which is interesting to me. It adds a richness. It adds something, like you were saying, the 4-piece rock band, sort of like very raw and aggressive. To Rob's point, very sort of metal-esque, and that's where the whole roots of that came from, with Black, being compared to Black Sabbath and maybe even Deep Purple, bands like that. But here, this is where I feel this is where they truly became Led Zeppelin, and it informed what was to become with Zeppelin IV. And then, of course, going on with House of the Holy and such, the next couple of albums, I think, would benefit from this record greatly in terms of the structure of the songs and the building up of the arrangements, as you put it. So yeah, it definitely they definitely became a musician's type of band. I think people should have taken them more seriously in that regard. I don't know, because I don't think critics really dug this album that much either back in the day. Right. So, which is surprising, because they're showing more here. It's less is more, but I find there's a sort of richness to this record that's not on the first 2 records. So I don't know. But,
yeah, it's definitely a bolder sound, Chris.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, kind of to build on what Eric was saying. If you think about the way Zeppelin came together, Page kind of scouted everybody, right? So like he knew John Paul Jones from working in the studio system in England, and knew what he was capable of, and knew his genius as far as like arranging and playing keyboards and bass. And he actively pursued John Bonham when he saw what a brilliant drummer Bonham is. So he built the band wanting it to be a band. It wasn't like he had the wisdom to know that the band would be better if it wasn't just him. And I like you said, he was probably waiting for people to finally assert themselves and that kind of stuff. And as far as like critics go, I really feel like it just became the thing to shit on Led Zeppelin in the early 70s. Like,
yeah.
because I mean, I don't know how you listen to this and like, well, there's no whole lot of love. Like, yeah, but that's what's cool about it. Like, and you know, and if they had done another whole lot of love, I feel like Rolling Stone would have said, well, here they go. They're making Led Zeppelin 2 Part 2. Like, you know, and that would have been it. So like, I felt, you know, I definitely feel they felt that. And I definitely think you could see that there was like, they were in a damned if they do and damned if they don't type of situation.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that. I was literally about to say damned if they did and damned if they didn't, because it was kind of, and it was a really smart move to do it this early on. So it wasn't as much of a, you know, anything after this, if they'd done it an album or two after, it would have almost seemed like a gimmick, maybe perhaps like, oh, they're, you know, they got to do something new. But by them staking out and saying, we're doing it on our own terms, and you may not like it, but
yeah,
we still have the that other Led Zeppelin is still there. And that's the thing. It's not like these guys just, oh, we're just going to totally change. It's like, no, we're going to, almost like when you're making like a cake, like you fold in the different ingredients, like you just kind of add something and you fold it into the mix, and it's still a chocolate cake. It's just that you're adding chocolate chips to it. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just folding in these other layers, and that's kind of what they were doing in this aspect. It's kind of like, okay, we have the Led Zeppelin blueprint. We know what that is, and we can go to that. Mm. But what if we kind of took that, and yeah, like the song Friends, it has a riff, but it's done acoustically, right? That repeating, mm-hmm. like that could have easily been adapted into some type of a guitar riff and been just a heavier, you know, another face melter. But instead, it's like, well, let's take those elements and deconstruct them, and then reconstruct it as something else.
Interesting. Yeah, good point. Yeah. And then there was no, of course, they're throwing the blues standards on here as well. I mean, or at least, you know, their version of blues. Since I've Been Loving You, I think is one of the finest. And you know, they actually wrote it. So it's that's, you know, before it was like they were covering older songs and such. So I love the fact that they're tackling blues. So there's that. There's Immigrant Song. There's Gallows Pole, which gets a little bit heavier as the song goes on. You know, especially in Plant's point, you know, like his voice just kind of elevates it to that level. So yeah, what's not to like about this record? So yeah, you have those that are sort of anchoring the record, and then you got all this other stuff in between, which is, I think is just very interesting it's a really nice contrast. You know,
yeah, so. and it's not that I don't think if you know, I'll kick it over to you in a sec, Rob. I don't think the stuff is that obscure. You know, like you know, I immediately grabbed on to Celebration Day. I'm like, this is just a great song. Yeah, it's kind of rocking. It's just it's not like massive blues riffs, and it's not the folky stuff. It's just a straight ahead kind of rocker. Mm-hmm. So Rob, what do you got?
You know, I was going to say a lot of the songs also tap into the influences that influence them. You know, I lost my thought for there. Like Friends, the song you're talking about, Friends, is you could definitely see the influence from Stephen Stills, Carry On, that same guitar tuning and everything. Ronnie Orr Stomp, is a Burt Jansch type of song, kind of stole a little bit of it.
What, Led Zeppelin steal something? No.
And even Since I've Been Loving You.
I was going to say, Since I've Been Loving You has to come from somewhere else. Like
it's influenced. Robert Plant was a big fan of Moby Grape, and one of their songs starts off almost with the exact same lyric. Instead of working from 7 to 11, they say working from 11 to 7.
Oh, well, that's a whole new idea then. That's a whole new thought.
But Robert Plant was a huge Moby Grape fan, and that comes out in Since I've Been Loving You. And I think
even Tangerine. Tangerine came from the Yardbirds song.
Came from the Yardbirds, right?
He wrote it while he was in the Yardbirds. Yeah.
Knowing That I'm Losing You, which they did record, but it was never released. You know, you can find it. Keith Relf ended up doing the lead vocal, and there was even some disagreement about that when Tangerine came out. Page got the writing credit, and some of the Yardbirds were like, "No, he didn't really write that, though." like, Keith Relf wrote the lyrics perhaps, but more thievery, Rob. Sorry.
But I think that the one thing that makes this album pivotal, especially for other bands, is it allowed other bands to experiment and go outside of their boundaries. They saw Led Zeppelin do this and said, "Wow, this is great. Maybe we should try something like this." I think it's sort of it gave the okay for a lot of bands to go into different directions.
Yeah, much like you can almost parallel it, Eric, with like the Beatles in the 60s as they changed.
Mm-hmm.
Bands that were doing Beatle-y, mop-toppy style stuff was like, oh, well, we can kind of do some different stuff too. And Zeppelin is kind of almost taking the same playbook of, well, we've got this, and all the critics are expecting a certain sound from us, but we're gonna kind of change.
Yeah.
What the if we want to call them heavy metal, that what a metal band can do, which is a musical exploration. Basically, that's what this album is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was the 70s. 70s was, there. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, there's a lot of competition out there too, in what people were doing experimentally.
Mm-hmm.
So, so it's. I guess it might have been one of those things. Well, we need to do it too, kind of attitude. And like Chris's point, critics were very harsh on Zeppelin for whatever reason. I have no idea, but it's like, but for, I don't know why, but Rolling Stone, they must have changed their mind over the years because they got a perfect rating. This album's like 4 or 5 like 5 stars or whatever. Now, if you look it up, but they're one of the most unique sounding bands ever. And, they had a very, and that's, it boggles the mind for me as to why they might've been so hated or so, fans, I mean, fucking ate that shit up. I mean, but it was just sort of, very strange.
Before, hang on, just to answer Eric.
Yep.
You know what? That sometimes that helps when critics dislike something. That means, that's the establishment, and if they don't like it, I'm going to like it even more.
True.
Right. And I'm going to like it because they don't like it. We know that is a story throughout music.
Yeah.
Of when the establishment doesn't like something, we're going to like it even more. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was going to say, just to kind of go back to that Almost Famous tip, there's that one scene in the movie where when they're like wary of them, like they've trashed everything Led Zeppelin's ever made.
Yeah.
They trashed the Layla album. Like, like albums that we look back on now got like absolute shit reviews, and you go, what were you listening to that I'm not hearing? Because
he's the enemy.
Right. And the one thing whenever I look at an album on Wikipedia, I always kind of look at what the album was rated. And the one that really surprised me on this was Robert Christgau, who wrote for The Village Voice. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He wrote for The Village Voice. And it's almost impossible, I feel like, to get like a decent review from him unless you're like like a punk band or a jazz band. And like I was really surprised that he gave this record a B+ out of on an A through F scale. That one surprised me that he actually gave it a.
Yeah, a lot of those critics in the 70s or music reviewers, outside of someone like Cameron Crowe, were trying to be like tastemakers, and they're trying to like the hoi polloi, like trying to elevate rock music to something that it's not. Rock music is rock music. And it comes in it's like fruit stripe gum. It comes in all different flavors, and sometimes the flavors don't even last very long. But there's always something that's going to be different. And as these bands have their contracts, they're going to stretch out and do different things. Here's another confession. You guys ready? The first time I heard Out on the Tiles was on the Encomium compilation CD by Blind Melon. I thought it's in retrospect, now that I've heard it, I think it's an incredible cover. They did an incredible job of Out on the Tiles. I
don't remember that one.
Oh my God, it's superb. It's a superb cover. Rob is shaking his head yes. So why don't you give me some support?
Yeah, no, I have that album. It's a great album. All the covers on that are really good.
Yeah, they are. The ones I've heard are phenomenal.
Yeah, and I was just watching like a little snippet on YouTube about their recording of it. Like they did like little things, and the guys from Blind Melon were kind of like, there are so many songs. Like the guy was saying, I think it was the guitarist from Blind Melon. He's like, FM radio plays like the same 10 songs by Zeppelin. They never play anything different. And there's so much other stuff there, which is why they chose Out on the Tiles. Because it's like there's so much different stuff, and it just is perfectly suited to Shannon Hoon's like vocal range.
Yeah.
And they just do a really, really nice job on it. And so then when I was listening to this, I'm like, oh wow, it's kind of like I was like, yeah, I know it because of the cover. I'm sorry. Led Zeppelin III. But you know what? That was a great thing. Yeah, but that Encomium did a great service to it by highlighting a lesser known song that they were influenced by, and they were like, yeah, we love this song, and we thought it would be great for us to do. So, I like you said, we can't have a Zeppelin album without a couple of covers. So Gallows Pole, and hats off to Roy Harper, are kind of rewrites or adaptations of. I think Gallows Pole is more of an adaptation, right, of an old folk song than it is an actual cover, because I think it's had so many different iterations.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Hats Off was based off of a Book of White record from, I don't know from when, but obviously an older blues tune.
Yeah. So they still working to thievery, still working.
That's the way is a, kind of like when you think about it, one of the first like environmental friendly type of songs,
Which was That's the Way?
He's singing about, the fish dying and stuff like that. He when he wrote that song, he was thinking about those type of things, like the environment, how we're treating the environment and things like that.
Yeah, Plant has always been very connected, like Eric said, kind of like the earth guy, like kind of connected to that kind of stuff, like, folklore, the woods, and it seems like going out to the Bronier Cottage really kind of helped him get into that mindset, right? And kind of relax a little bit and say, yeah, let's fiddle around with some stuff and kind of chill out.
Page was very put off by how primitive it was. It was very, very harsh conditions. And we're talking about, what was this, Scotland, right? I mean, this is somewhere around there, or was
Wales, I think.
The Highlands, something close to
Wales.
No running water and no heat.
Yeah. So it was nice to get away, but I think there was, it was, chopping wood and all that kind of thing was, probably not something Page was.
It would still be nice to turn on a faucet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the least you're a rock band. I know you want to kind of go back to like, maybe like the band in Big Pink, but at least that was a functioning house. You're going to go to like, the Shire where there's nothing.
The Shire.
Lighting a fire to keep warm. I mean, you don't want to go through that. You've got options there. But that's what that did, is that whole change of environment facilitated a tonal shift in this album. Which again, I really I think about it a lot, and when we do this show, about how you have opportunities to listen to stuff and maybe you don't take it, and I think maybe because you're not ready, and I don't think I was ready to like embrace this album. When I was listening to Zeppelin, I wanted the Heartbreaker and Live and Love and Made, like I wanted that Zeppelin. That was feeding what I wanted from them. And so when I went to Zeppelin III, I'm like, I don't want this.
Well, albums
and now,
like this,
in listening to it, I'm like, oh,
albums like this. I mean, you have those songs that, which were tailor made for radio, like Live and Love and Made and stuff like that. I mean, it was just sort of, but an album like this, it's like, Chris pointed out, like, he got into it because of Almost Famous and those scenes. It was very, you talked about the sunset or the sunrise, or this is a very fall album. You talk about driving, just, all the leaves changing, as you're driving. This is the perfect album to listen to in that sense. And I think, that's probably what came to mind. Inspiration comes from all places. So nature itself was probably the fixture there, or the sort of fire to say, hey, let's tone it down. Let's This could be like, you're sitting around a campfire or something, or, and just strumming away, of course they
Absolutely.
but it's just, that's the vibe you get. Of course, there's stuff added, but it's just, yeah. It puts you in a different place, and it's, very picturesque, and that's not a bad thing, especially as you get older, toward in the years, stuff like this holds up because of it. Your memories and images and things like that. Just the music informs this kind of thing. So I that's why I dig it.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
Perfectly said.
And one thing that also draws me to this album is, if you watch a lot of live Led Zeppelin from the early 70s, mid 70s, I love a lot of the songs from this album. I love the live versions of them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll hear a live version of a song by a band, and it's not really the same. But their live versions of these songs, like Brownie or Stomp and all that, and Since I've Been Loving You, I mean, the live stuff is unbelievable. I love it.
Yeah, they've only played Friends once live in 1971, and that was it. So that was a one and done. Could be tough. Could have been tough for them to pull off, Chris.
And just to kind of build on Rob's point, when I was in college, right after I graduated from college, that DVD came out that they finally put out, like some concert footage from the 70s, and they have one from, I believe it's Earl's Court, and there's that whole centerpiece of the record. I mean, whole centerpiece of the concert where they would do an acoustic set, and I think it was from 75, and there's a lot of Led Zeppelin III songs represented because of their nature, and it's just, they really do translate well live. And Since I've Been Loving You, I think from the time it came out, became their blues showcase for the rest of the time that they were together as a band. Of course, I could be wrong. Rob could probably clarify that, but I thought that.
Yeah, no, I mean, Since I've Been Loving You is a great song to hear live. I mean, because Page always goes off on that when it comes to guitar, and you got John Paul Jones on the keyboards there. I mean, it's a perfect song. It lends itself perfectly to playing live.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about Since I've Been Loving You, I think we need to mention squeaky drum pedals.
I thought that was the coolest thing, though, when I first heard that.
Let me preface it, because there's a song that I've been listening to for probably 20 years before, and I've always sworn that there was a squeaky bass pedal in there, and I wasn't sure if it was actually a thing until this song. The song I'm thinking of is, if you listen to The Changeling by The Doors, you can hear John Densmore's bass pedal squeaking, or whatever pedal he's using is squeaking. It makes the same exact fucking noise. Although that came out after this, so it's making the same noise as the squeaky pedal in Since I've Been Loving You, which is very, I kind of like that it's almost like Eric's talked about before, when guitar players play and their fingers run along the frets and you get that scraping, that noise. Yeah. Or, when they're sliding up and down. This is kind of the equivalent, but you never really hear it. I think it's something that's usually unwanted, right? Or like kind of not desired.
I think Jimmy Page loved to leave that type of stuff in. Even like the beginning of Friends, the song starts out, he's sort of doodling around, and then he starts getting into it.
Right.
And I think it, in a way, I don't know. I mean, I don't know his real purpose for doing it, but it almost, you can almost tell that, it's a live recording, they're not, playing separate part, they're right there in the studio playing, with the mics rolling, Yeah.
And let's just leave it in. 'Cause usually you're we've talked about other groups like Steely Dan, like the musical perfection, and none of that would stand.
Right.
But that's what gives this more of a kind of a, like Eric was saying, that kind of homey feel, that homemade, handmade, rustic feel to it, that we're just leaving that in, not because it's there and it's okay and it's fine, it doesn't hurt it doesn't help it, it's just kind of a little, almost like an Easter egg. If you listen to it, you're like, what is that squeaking? Is that my door? Is it my chair? Like when you ever have that when you're listening to something, to music, and something, you hear something that is in the song, but you think it's happening like in your house. Like, what was that noise?
Yeah.
That's what the squeaking is like. What is that squeaking noise? And it's like, it's the bass pedal.
And I mean, and to that point, there are definitely other mistakes on the record, like from Friends into Celebration Day. I think they accidentally erased the drums on the intro to Celebration Day. So he just like got like synthesizer sounds and different effects and messed with the tape and kind of merged the two songs together. And to me, that it fits. I think that's really cool that you go from this like, you know, Indian raga almost type song into this like upbeat, you know, kind of rock and roll tune. They merged together really well the way he did it. So
yeah, it's just a lot
even
of
the beginning of Tangerine, he has like a false start, and then he counts it off again.
A lot of it, like I think Muddy Waters' folk singer album, which I absolutely
that's
love.
A phenomenal album.
Feel Like Going Home. There's the way he does that, you know, and you hear all like those finger, like the fretwork and stuff, like, and it's just so. And a lot of it sounds just like squeak. It's like he's like playing slide, but it's very, very light. But it's like, I feel like that could have been, you know, might have been an influence on Page wanting to leave that kind of thing in. And then people like Cameron Crowe might have picked up on something like this, which is the reason why he wrote that little scene with, Billy Crudups, and you know, like he was telling him, he goes, it's those little moments in the song, like those little whoop, you know, like that's the song that makes the song, you know. So it's like, I mean, these are things that somebody's actually listening to, and I think it's interesting that a musician could, you know, provide that, and it just, you know, or even if it's an accident, you know, it's like it's. I always gave it, you know, it always gives everything personality, you know.
I mean, even in Out on the Tiles, isn't there like there's like a point where like at one of the beats where he goes stop? Yeah. And I don't know if that's supposed to be there or if it's like a mistake that they just left in.
Yeah.
But I've always caught it when I'm like singing along or like following along with the song. Like I don't know if it's legitimately supposed to be there or somebody was like trying to signal somebody in a booth somewhere or something.
Yeah, and it kind of it gives the music that like artisan feel, like that it was made by just people performing. You know, it gives it that spontaneity, right? It's like, we're gonna lay this down, like Rob said, and we're just gonna leave it. You know, if that's the way the recording was, you know, that's what this album is. Now they would pursue, you know, they would, you know, smooth everything out on other recordings, but that's not what this one is. This one is kind of that experiment of what's the opposite of Led Zeppelin II? What's the opposite of the big bombast? It's this homemade, a little sloppy feel with different instruments. And like Eric said, it kind of has like a campfire, I don't want to say a hoedown, but like they're just sitting around strumming and everybody's kind of joining in. If you have an instrument, you kind of grab whatever's there.
It's like a hang.
Yeah. And you kind of play, you know, and that's what, I guess what's appealing me to this album is that it's the anti-Zeppelin II.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's the un-Zeppelin II. It's like 7-Up. It's the un-Cola.
I almost feel like the layering of even the acoustic guitar on this though feels like they all have an acoustic guitar in their hands. Like even John Bonham, like here you go, and they're all playing that riff, like because it's so thick and it's so heavy on a lot of these songs, and you know, like Friends, and it just feels like you know, there's like 10 people playing acoustic guitar at once. You know, I love that. I love the sound of that. It's just great.
Yeah, that's testing the boundaries, right? And that's, you know, I guess we got to give Page that. I guess credit for it, right? I mean, I think, you know,
deceptively, he's like, it sounds like they're Rob like pointed out, like it sounds like it's being recorded right there in the studio, but there is some work being done there. There is some, you know, and that's what's brilliant about it, because you wouldn't. You know, you don't think so, but so it kind of deceives you a little bit. But there is some, you know, real good production work on this record happening at the same time. So there's that nice blend there. It just, you know, somehow it's just enough there. Like I said, there's a richness to the songs, you know, even with adding those keyboards in it, but they're just kind of hanging back to make it more acoustic, you know, I guess more, but it just seems like they're actually doing more with this record than before, you know?
And I don't think he gets because he's such a great guitar player and such an influential guitar player, Rob, you can take this. I think he gets the short shrift on all the other stuff that he did because he looms so large as a guitar player in the 70s for one of the biggest bands that it's weird. It's almost weird talking about him as a producer because you don't think of him that way. He doesn't come off that way. He doesn't see, he just seems like he's the guitarist in Led Zeppelin. He doesn't seem like he's the kind of the architect behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, that doing that behind the scenes stuff, that all started when he was a session musician.
Yeah.
And that's where he got the interest in getting behind the console there and doing that type of stuff, layering guitars and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, like in this album where you have like the little miscues and stuff like that. I mean, he was so hands on with the recording of albums, with behind the console there, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Yeah. Because he didn't really do a whole lot of production work, Eric, did he? Like outside of Zeppelin,
I think he produced a few artists, didn't he? Like back in before, like when he was still in the Yardbirds around that time frame, right? I think he work with some R&B artists, Rob? I mean,
he would play on people's albums. I would think as like a producer and arranger outside of Led Zeppelin, I would say John Paul Jones was probably more prolific when it came to that.
I want to say, didn't he work with like Aretha Franklin at some point? Yeah,
I just pulled it up quick. It said, and our internet overlords are telling me that Jimmy Page produced many artists and projects besides Led Zeppelin, both as a session musician and as a producer, including the Stones. I don't know when he worked with the Stones, but it says the Stones, the Who, and Petula Clark.
Petula Clark.
Yeah, that had to be the sixth. That was the sixth. Petula Clark was the 60s. So yeah. And the Who stuff was him. Eric
was probably playing on Can't Explain, right?
Yeah, he was doing session work on that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I feel like that might be more session than it is production. The way I'm reading this now, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he played on the movie soundtrack that Brian Jones did, Degree of Murder.
Right.
He played guitar on that too.
If you're really interested in that stuff, anybody out there listening to this, becoming Led Zeppelin, like you see, like what he worked on, the records he worked on before he joined the Yardbirds and then ultimately Zeppelin. Like you don't realize like how much of the Planet Songbook he played on. And like it's really mind blowing.
He's like the British Carol Kay.
In a lot of respects, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird that he's such an iconic figure. And it's always him, like probably a still from the song Remains the Same with the guitar and but this whole shaping of the Led Zeppelin thing, he doesn't really get credit for. And maybe because it was all the drugs too that that would eventually like overtake. So it seems like, well, how could that guy be the one that was doing this stuff? But he's playing guitar and he goes on stage and he's coked out or whatever. But how could he be the producer as well?
Not to mention the alleged sort of satanic stuff that kind of creeped in too.
The Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to that point too, just to kind of add on to that, you think about him in being like the rock god with the awesome like stage suits and the Les Paul with the bow and all the other stories you hear about Zeppelin. I think in addition to his work as a producer, what also gets lost is he's just as good an acoustic guitar player as he is an electric guitar player.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's one thing that Led Zeppelin III shows is that his acoustic guitar playing style is so awesome. And it's not like your typical folk, because there is some like, groove and some punch to his acoustic playing that's a little more rocking than you might hear on some other, folky type stuff, which I don't think he gets enough credit for either.
Yeah, and so many alternate tunings as well. If you read about it, he's like, this is an alternate tuning in C, but then he's like, but I made some of it up too. Like even the alternate tunings, he's even alternate tuning that as well, which is crazy. And Chris, you make a good point that when you play the stuff like they're playing on the previous album, it's kind of easy to get away with distortion playing. Rob can tell you. I don't mean that's not a slam against Rob, but meaning when you play guitar with distortion, it's very forgiving. You can get away with a lot.
Yeah,
it can make a shitty player like me a little bit less shitty.
Right.
But when you play an acoustic guitar, it's you can't hide that. You can't
hide it. Yeah.
I heard Keith Richards once call it the truth. 6 strings in a hole is the truth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Right, Rob? I mean, it's kind of like that. That is like Chris said, kind of the dividing line is once you start playing an acoustic guitar, it's laid out bare for you. You can either play or you can't.
You can't hide behind any pedals or distortion or anything like that. Yeah, it's just you know, you and your fingers.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm still kind of blown away by it. I just kind of like really started listening to it, and maybe because we've done Houses of the Holy, you know, we've kind of, and we did In Through the Outdoor with Eric, you know, with Eric and I, and so as I'm kind of getting into this, I'm seeing the different facets, you know, and that's why when I asked Eric what we wanted to do, and I think I put, you know, 3, 4, and I forget something else. Like Led Zeppelin 4, it's like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually, but you know, it's gonna, you know, this seemed to be more of a challenge for me because I wasn't as familiar really whatsoever. So it's like, yeah, let me get something. And all you guys are everyone's raving about Led Zeppelin 3. You know, I thought maybe it was because of the cool cover. You spin the thing and the faces change, and you got the little dial. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. I could go for that. You know?
I'm glad you brought that up because that's the problem with having MP3s and CDs. You don't have the album cover, you know. That's great. That type of stuff, you know.
Yeah, you know, it was one of you know, it was.
They had some of the best covers.
Oh man, so awesome.
Eric, did Sticky Fingers come out before this or after this? Sticky Fingers had the zipper, right, with the Rolling Stones.
I think it was
Sticky Fingers 71.
71.
Okay.
Yep.
This was like the era of like the gimmick.
Yeah, but even this record had like that inner sleeve that you pull out, and it has all the holes in the cover, much like Physical Graffiti. Like that's an amazing. Like you could take that album apart and switch it around and put it back, and you still have different pictures in every window.
3, it was that wheel. I forget what they call it.
3 was the wheel. It's called a visage or something. I forget what it's called. But where you turn the wheel and the pictures would change. They had all different things.
In Through the Outdoor was wrapped in paper. Like
bag.
I remember that.
It was watercolor. If you
the watercolor,
if you brushed it, it would show the colors.
And weren't there different like covers? Like it was different. Like you could get for like 4 different scenes or something crazy with In Through the Outdoor, right?
Yeah. Depending. Yeah, the inside they were all different,
and that's why they were wrapped in paper bags because you didn't know it was like a surprise inside.
It's just amazing.
And then we got to touch on.
Go ahead.
The Immigrant Song.
Let's go. I mean, Thor Ragnarok.
Iconic vocal in the world. Yeah, everybody knows that. I'm not even going to try to do it now, but everybody knows it. Chris, going to Stepinac High School.
Yeah.
Every week, you would hear someone screaming that through the hallways.
You know what though? But to your point, man, I was there 10 years later, and there were definitely a lot of Zeppelin fans in my class too. Everybody knew that tune. That's true.
Every week, you would hear someone doing that through the hallway.
It's literally a war cry, man. I mean, it's just and that's the song. The Vikings. You really, you get that imagery. It's just
Hammer of the Gods. I mean, he wrote it for Thor Ragnarok.
They were in Iceland, actually.
What's that?
Yeah.
They wrote that song when they were in Iceland.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was a literal translation of what they were. Well, they weren't conquering and they weren't rowing there, but it's certainly the inspiration for it. Yeah. Like I said, I keep bringing up Thor because it's the perfect pairing.
Yeah.
Like that opening scene of Thor Ragnarok. And
that was amazing.
They got the Immigrant Song, like Hammer of the Gods and just all that like stuff. And then it comes back later on when Thor kind of like finally like learns how to like power up and learns that the hammer isn't everything. And they use it again.
That's one of my top 5 MCU movies. It's just such I love that one so much.
Yeah,
but it screams. It really defined the imagery that Led Zeppelin was trying to evoke.
And
yeah.
No, I was going to say, and then on a different tip, you've got the way it was used in School of Rock, where Jack Black is driving the van and like singing and mimicking his hand. Apparently, he got a bunch of like fans and him like sent a video to Led Zeppelin begging for that song to be used. But,
because they were very particular, and we talked about it in Silver Linings Playbook as well. What is and should never be. That like they're not fans of like using their music like that, and you really need to make a compelling case. Although maybe now, since Thor Ragnarok, they probably have lightened up a little bit. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's kind of fun. And
I think Cameron Crowe was probably one of the first ones to actually be allowed to use a Zeppelin song in a movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a Zeppelin song in a movie before that.
Yeah. So and I guess because he had a prior relationship with them.
Someone had to break the Led Zeppelin glass ceiling.
There you go.
of movie use.
But he's very good at. He's exceptional at picking the right songs for his films. So go hand in hand.
Yeah, he's kind of like Tarantino in that aspect of like
100%.
And Scorsese, like a lot of those directors that are very music centric. Probably they probably have that stuff already picked out and they're writing to it. I'm pretty sure that Tarantino does that. He's already like writing to what he wants it to be. And you can tell because those emotional beats, just hit. Even David O. Russell, there's a lot of guys that are just
Paul
really
Thomas Anderson
dialing in.
And they use it to a greater effect too. Like the least, like I've always said, like it's just some of the cheesiest pop songs are now forever changed because there's somebody getting killed or something in the scene, or it's completely, the context is completely changed and you forever listening to that song a different way.
I'll never think of Stuck in the Middle of You
right
ever the same way again.
Yeah. So. But Cameron Crowe has a knack of I love his he's so like, he's almost like a nerd. Like he's just so like, he romanticizes the music in such a way that every song is just perfect for the scene. And he knows exactly how to use it in that context as well. It's not, you're not altering, the context of the song. It's used in as it's meant to be.
Yeah. You're giving it new.
Yeah.
Dimension. It's funny. I was at a party this past week and we were playing music, right? And the song Magic came on by Pilot, like,
yeah.
And my friend was there. She was there. She goes, oh, Ozempic. I'm like, all right, now we know that's.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Now it is.
Unfortunate.
It's exceeded its intended use. That now it's no longer. It's like it's Ozempic now.
Yeah,
like it's reached critical mass. That
yeah. I was watching that show. My family and I, we've been watching that show we've been watching reruns on Hulu of that show, The Goldbergs.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to take place in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they play the song "You've Got the Touch" from the Transformers cartoon from when I was a little kid. And all I can think of now is Mark Wahlberg
Boogie Nights,
that song in Boogie Nights.
It's great. That's a fantastic scene.
Oh my god.
Oh, that movie too. God, we've never done that. By the way, we need to put that on the books, man.
I would. Oh man, if you let me cross over, I would totally do that.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody should come on for that one.
Oh man, that was so much fun.
It would be a tough. It would be a tough one. And you have ELO at the end too. And Jeff Lynne, they showed him. They said, "This is what it's going to be." He's like, "Absolutely,
the living thing."
Yeah. They showed him what it was going to be. He was like, "Okay." He was on board.
Oh man.
Anyway, and the move is in that soundtrack too. Feel Too Good.
Yeah, it's a great scene too.
So. But all right, let's put a bow on this one. Do we want to go around and do some favorites or what? Let's start with Rob, because you're like the expert here. So what from like the guy that lives, breathes, sleeps Led Zeppelin? What for you? Like give me 2 or 3 that are kind of emblematic for you. Like when someone says to you Zeppelin III, you're like,
When I think of Zeppelin III, believe it or not, the first song that pops in is "That's the Way." That's the first song I think of.
Okay.
That song, it always it's from the first time I heard it, that song always had a hook in me. You know, I never really had to get into that song.
Mhm.
It was just there. And then
we can't use Immigrant Song because that's too easy. That's the rule.
Since I've Been Loving You is I especially hearing that live and stuff like that. Those two are the main ones for me.
Okay.
On that.
Eric, what do you got?
I love the whole album, but like I said before, it is a true album. But if I had to choose, Since I've Been Loving You, Tangerine.
Yeah.
I love the vocals in Tangerine, and like Jimmy Page layering those guitars, like he layers the vocals in a sort of an off key kind of thing too, right? These weird kind of like Plant almost tuning his vocals in that song in the chorus, and it's like three people singing but not together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
They would change the speed on the vocals.
Yeah, and I love that. I think it's great. Yep.
All right, Chris.
So in addition to what Rob and Eric have already said, because I'm the same thing, like Celebration Day is one of my favorite songs. That's the Way is one of my favorites. Tangerine's one of my favorites, but on top of that, Gallows Pull is another one that always kind of draws me into. I love how that song picks up speed, and it's got that banjo riff playing over the acoustic guitar, and then just the teensiest, tiniest, like tastiest, like lay down of guitar licks towards the end, electric guitar towards the end. I think it's just a perfectly constructed song, the way they do it.
Cool. I'll go with Celebration Day. I'll go with Out on the Tiles. John Bonham actually wrote most of that song. He came up with the groove. He came up with like the like that was his idea, which I kind of like. It's kind of a groovy song, so I'll go with Celebration Day, Out on the Tiles, and I'm kind of getting into Bronny or Stomp.
That's a fun one too.
It's not one that I usually would gravitate towards, but it's kind of like that. I was listening to it just before we went on, and it's almost like a precursor to the stomp clap thing of the 2010s, like the Lumineers and that kind of like stomp clap stuff that Mumford and Sons was.
I was going to say Mumford, yeah.
It's kind of like reminds me of that kind of. I was like, oh, I kind of hear where, if they were going to say they were influenced by Led Zeppelin, it would be this.
Yeah,
like those type of those alternative folk bands that are popular now, or in the 2010s that started getting popular. It's like, I think if they mention Zeppelin as an influence, it's probably that type of thing. So I kind of so I'm kind of connected, and that's what I love. I'm kind of connecting these things to things that I listen to now, which is making it kind of giving me those inroads, which I really love. So.
And it's also a song about his dog, Robert Plant's dog.
Well, there you go. See?
And this is the album I never knew for a longest time what was the album that was supposed to showcase, hey, what can I do?
Yeah.
And it's this one.
Yeah.
It was the B-side of Immigrant Song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would have made the album better had it been included, but I always liked that being the outlier song that just was out there by itself independently from any tied to any record and until later on when they put it on compilations and such. But it's just
interesting. It's it's almost like but
I almost feel like it wouldn't have fit, right? Because most of the acoustic stuff on this album is just so offbeat. And hey, what can I do is more it sounds something that you could find and maybe closer, to the more produced, like Zeppelin IV and House of the Holy kind of thing. Like, but an amazing song. I always loved it. It was always one of my favorite, songs.
I remember when Hey, What Can I Do came out when they released it. And it was the first time I was like, wow, the new Led Zeppelin song. Like, oh my God, I'm going to hear something different.
A new old Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
What was the first time it was released? Was it the box set, Rob?
I think so, right around, like in probably like what, mid 80s, early 80s, I think it came out. Right? They released
the first Led Zeppelin box set?
That box set, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was the first, maybe.
Because I know, because they were.
I want to say no, because they used to play it on the radio all the time.
The first Led Zeppelin box set was the one with the crop circles on it.
Yep.
That came out in 1990. And
Yeah,
Hey, What Can I Do was on it.
Right, but it couldn't have been. That was maybe the first time you were able to have it.
Yeah, without having to get the 45 of Immigrant Song.
Right, but they always used to play it on the radio. And, NEW would play the hell out of Hey, what can I do? Way before that.
I bought that
NEW.
mainly because that was the only place you can get Traveling Riverside Blues, which I loved.
Yes.
I love that song.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the only place you can get it. I'm like, okay, I guess here we go.
I still remember I got that. We used to spend the summers in Florida with my grandparents, and I remember my dad got it and made a special point of like mailing it to us down in Florida. And this box came, and my brother and I opened it up and like being like so psyched that we got the Led Zeppelin box set while we were down in Florida.
It's probably the best one. Like that was the first one, and it's probably the only one they ever needed to do. It's pretty comprehensive. Although I think I was kind of I think I told this story. Because I bought this, and what was it? Heartbreaker was on it, but not Livin' Lovin' Maid. Like right after it, like they left it off, and I was like, "What? Like why?
What the hell?" Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah, Heartbreaker was on it, but not Livin' Lovin' Maid right after it. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess because you're so used to listening to NEW, WNEW in New York, where they play it, like We Are the Champions and We Will Rock You. You get both. Right. I'm like, all right, I guess I got to go get Led Zeppelin II. I got to find out what it was on. It was Led Zeppelin II. I ended up buying a cassette so I could just, it kind of poked the stick. It's like, well, you're going to get one.
I remember
you want the rest. You got to go buy. You got to get the full album.
They never really liked Livin' Lovin' Maid, right?
I did. I remember when the compilation when that box set came out. Jimmy Page, I remember in an interview him saying that he wanted to contrast like songs that you wouldn't normally hear back to back and stuff like that. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's probably why he split those two songs.
Yeah, he just omitted it. He just didn't even give it to us. Yeah, I think he was not a fan of it because I think they played it once live and that was it, if at all. So. But I think that's going to do it for Led Zeppelin III. Check it out. There's a whole bunch there's an original version. There's there's two different remasters. The latest remaster has a whole bunch of like basically the whole album in demo forms or remixed things. And then there was a whole bunch of songs that they recorded that never made it. Like, hey, what can I do? And a couple other ones that just kind of were in the mix, but didn't make the cut. So it's available wherever you want. But like we say, if you've got the opportunity, if you have a turntable, find an original copy of it. And check it out. Or if you got the CD, go ahead and pop that CD on and give it a spin. Right? We all concur.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You won't be disappointed.
Awesome. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Go ahead, if you've made it this far, take the next step. Go ahead and give us a follow on your favorite podcast provider. And if you want to give us some feedback, you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then there's also a fan mail or message us little button within the podcast app that you're using, and you can send us a one-way message. We won't be able to respond that way. So if you want to be yelling at us and stuff, good on you. We can't respond. So we'll just have to take it. We'll take it like a man. But if you want responses, the other ways are the best way to do it. And of course, we're always grateful and thankful for you checking us out each and every week as we give you what we feel. Eric says it all the time, the best in music and movie podcasting. I try and talk him off the ledge a little bit and say we're really good, but he's like, no, we're the best in music and movie podcasting. I'm like, all right, I'm with you then. It's like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. You want to jump? Let's do it. And then he grabs my head and we jump together. That's it. Let's do it, asshole. And we jump together. So you are listening to what we believe is the best in music and movie podcasting. Rob DeStefano, thank you so much for joining us for our Zeppelin-versary celebration day, a.k.a.
Talking about Zeppelin is never a bad thing.
All right. We will reconvene next November for our Zeppelin-versary, and we'll pick another album. Christopher Clark, as always, thank you for reprising your role with us as well.
Absolutely. I was very happy to be doing this.
Happy Zeppelin-versary. Happy celebration day. And of course, Eric and I, we celebrate every week. We celebrate a different kind of musical anniversary. And we're grateful for you for joining us and coming along on the ride. So for Rob, for Chris, for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.